Welcome into the First and 10 podcast brought to you by OXP Media. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. And today we have a very special guest on the show today. We have Willie Middlebrooks. Willie Middlebrooks is a former NFL player from our all-second team Big Ten, as well as CFL player as well, too, with the Toronto Argonauts. I'm very pleased to have you on the show. Very pleased to have you here all together. Thank you for the opportunity. Hope you're doing well.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Definitely.
So today I wanted to talk about your football journey and just get into more about what kids can do to kind of propel and get them into the position that you were currently in right now. But I'm going to start at Homestead. I remember Homestead, you said that I remember in a quote, reading back through my research, that you were really, really inspired by a number of the players that came before you, and that's the great tradition at Homestead High School. Talk about your experience there, and it's like your coaching, everything, your upbringing there. How did that propel you to the next level? And we'll get into some more later on. So Homestead.
I just think it's a place in the South where sports, there's a community thing. So you would see Saturdays where the parks are lit up. Friday nights you can go and see lights everywhere. And when sports season was in, it's almost a family thing where if you were my neighbor, you knew of me from sports, or I knew your oldest son. So it was like, I like to use the term even when we're training, you be what you see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that can be good or bad, depending on the neighborhood you grew up in. Like my neighborhood, a lot of the guys that came before me that were really, really good athletes that might have gotten caught by the streets or a struggle, policed us. So they came before us and they was like, yo, don't be like us. Be better than us. Or
OGs.
Yeah, there was the OGs. And I respect them to this day. And a lot of people, like my wife, she's from here in Canada. When I go back home, I might run to a corner store when I'm in my neighborhood seeing my grandparents. I'll run into any and everybody. Some of the people may be drug dealers. Some of them may be ex-addicts. Some of them may be police officers, chiefs, or mayors. So my level of knowing people, it extends way out. But it was always a good thing where I was able to speak to everyone and they was able to say, man, you have a lot of talent. Do this. You're a really good kid. Do this. So they policed me away from a lot of the stuff. But back to that, you be what you see. I saw a lot of guys before me that was like, yo, if you just do this, you'll be okay. Or I would stand next to them as a kid and it was like, well, you're almost my size. Now I'm in high school. Or I would have the same coach that would tell me a story like, yo, you remind me of this guy.
Right.
And he was like, do you know who this guy is? And I'm like, no. And then when I got to my high school, I saw that guy my coach was talking about on the Wall of Fame. I'm like, y'all want to get up here. Mm-hmm. When I would walk through class, for example, my 10th grade year, the first two people that was on my Wall of Fame was my aunt and my cousin. They ran track.
Wow. There we go. Family full of athletes.
So it was a family thing. And then obviously my sister is a little bit older than I am, 3 years older, same exact birthday. She was chasing what my aunts had done. The two older aunts was on the wall. And then further down, a few years later, my younger aunt was on the wall. And then some of her friends that would come by my grandparents' house, I remember going like Friday night games, watching them, and then watching them play for Florida State or Florida or Miami.
Right.
And then, as the years they would come back, they would go back to the park to speak. Just on the face of our coaches or still being family with those coaches that coached us. Mm-hmm. And, they would see us from year to year like, man, you growing. And whether we grew or not, just hearing it come from a guy who played college that I just watched you play Florida and Florida State, or I just watched you get drafted into the NFL, or when I go to this high school, I see your picture on the wall. It meant more than words can, more than I can express. Yeah, I can describe. So, again, fast forward seeing those guys 5 years later, where they're in the NFL and I'm high school, they coming back to my game.
That's crazy. It's a tradition.
To give me a pre-game pep talk. Like they're on a bye week and they come home to my game. Mm-hmm. Or for some of those that didn't maybe make it to the NFL, they was college scouts at that point. Like, yo, we want you at Florida. We want you at Florida State. Or that stuff, man, was big for me. It's sometimes it still seems surreal when I talk to my son after me being a first-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. Going back thinking or sharing stories with him about sitting in Bobby Bowden's house. At that time, Bobby Bowden was the most winningest coach in football.
Yep.
To sit at his dinner table and eat ice cream with him on a visit. And he put all, the last 4 national championship rings on my finger, saying, Willie, if you was here 4 years ago, this could be you. Or seeing the rich tradition, walking into a Florida State locker room and seeing pictures of Dion everywhere. Like, it's crazy.
So let me that's just stop right there. You're giving me all of those gems. You're going. So what I want to talk about is before even getting to that point, because I'm going to talk about Florida State. I'm going to get right back into that. But, growing up, in Homestead, in Florida, right? And seeing those ahead of you, but where did you cultivate that love for football in general, and especially as a DB? Did you start out as a receiver? Like, how did your love for football even start in the journey? Go all the way back.
Honestly, my love, it was a little bit different. I always really enjoyed track. And it was like being, you're cool if you play football. Everyone in the neighborhood play. So it's like, okay, you follow the group, I'm going to play. Was I really good at it when I first started? Probably not. I didn't really understand it. So I'm laughing because I remember, like, Monday practice was always tackle drills. I couldn't tackle. Not that I was scared. I didn't know how. So I was like, okay, I'm going to always come late for Monday practice. Coach, run me out. I don't care. I want to run. I don't want no parts of this tackle stuff. But as I got older, things took a little different turn for me. My mom, coming up, was addicted to cocaine at the time. So for me, it was, no one was home. My sister played high-level basketball, so she was always gone. And I just found my sense of family around football.
Got it.
So it was like this was, I think that's where I really found my joy. It was like, yo, these my brothers. This coach is like my uncle. This other coach is like a granddad. Granted, I still had my family members around. I was close to them, my grandparents and uncles and stuff like that. But I found a sense of, when I didn't get the hugs at home, if I made a big play, my coach hugged me. And it carried out to, even when I got to high school, they didn't necessarily come to games. At that point, I was like, I know the scouts will come. Every time I made a play, and they was like, number 12, Willie Middlebrooks on the tackle, or Willie Middlebrooks on the interception. That for me was my hugs and pat on the back I didn't get at home.
Got it. So all started at home.
So that was my fire. Like, it was like, I don't get the attention here. I'm definitely gonna get it when these lights come on. So it was
100%.
That was my fuel. So I didn't need to be motivated by a coach yelling at me, or motivated to say, if you don't do this right, we're gonna run. I was like, bro, I'm gonna do it right because I want to hear the crowd say my name. I want to hear the commentator say something. Or I want to see the scouts come talk to me after the game. So that was the driving factor for me.
Wow, and that makes total sense, right? It's like an escape, and making sure that, hey, I'm gonna find validation doing this because this is what I love to do, right? And this is where I need to get it from. But 100%. But now in Homestead, of course, you all the success you accumulated at Homestead. Now going, as you just said, you were in Bobby Bowden's living room with the four rings and whatnot. But decided to go to Minnesota. Decided to leave Florida and then of course go over there. Was that more of an escape to get away from, not get away, but just kind of grow yourself, or did you? Is that a conscious decision?
No, that was an escape. That was an escape thing too, man. Like, my dream as a kid. Like, I had an aunt, one of my aunts I was telling you about. She went to Florida State, so for me it was like, I remember 1989 was Junior Olympic track and field. I made it for the 100 and 200. The track meet was hosted at the University of Florida State. So for me, I'm a young 10-year-old kid. I'm walking around campus. I'm just looking for Deion Sanders and Terrell Buckley. I think at that time, those were the two big guys.
Definitely.
Obviously, there were some other bigger name guys, but for me, those are my guys. Like, I really wanted to be like. So when I got the chance to go on a visit, it was a great place. The speech they gave me was great. Facility was nice. I remember talking to the D coordinator at the time, and he was like, you'll come in as a freshman. You won't start at the time. Samari Roll and Omar Edwards were the two starting corners. So Mari left early, went as a second rounder to Tennessee Titans. The speech they gave me and another corner that was from Miami, it was like, you guys will come in as freshmen. You'll play cleanup time. We blow teams out. You'll play a lot in the third quarter in special teams. As a true sophomore, you'll start. As a junior, you'll go to the NFL, because we had pretty much good size. That was a turnaround at Florida State. It was like, you here 3 years and you go into the league. So
100%. Yeah.
But again, my mom issues worsened a little bit, man. Like I said, she got on drugs pretty bad. And for me, I just wanted to escape. I didn't want to be home. Miami was really, really close. They were on probation. They offered me a scholarship as well, more for track, because they wanted to use their scholarship to get out-of-state guys to come for football. Florida offered me a scholarship at the time that Steve Spurrier was a coach. They just came off winning the national championship.
Caesar, ball coach, yeah. Steve Spurrier, yeah.
And for me, I was just like, the Florida schools is too close. I didn't want to have to worry about this. I heard so many other stories where guys would come back home all the time and it didn't work out for them. So for me, I was like, I want to go to Minnesota. And the coaching staff at Minnesota was obviously, they did a good job of convincing me it was a family thing there. And it worked out for me. We took a bad program and put it, in the top 20, at a few times in the top 15, top 10. Like, we had a top 5 defense in the country. My safety that was there played with me, won the Thorpe Awards, the best defense in the back in the country. We did some big things there, man.
100%. And you going from Florida, always being around warm temperatures, to go to Minnesota, like how was that transition for you?
That was a shock, man. I think it was definitely a shock. I got out of my comfort zone, but as a young teenager, a young man, I think I grew up a lot. It forced me to grow, and it forced me to find out what I was about and who I was. And on the flip side, leaving South Florida, where it's more Caribbean based, still in the South, you get some racism. It put me in white Minnesota, where our college was 60,000 people. Out of the 60,000 is 1,000 blacks. So it's nothing but white around. White Minnesota is what we call it, because when it gets cold, it gets real white.
It's cold.
But great people. And I had a great. I set out to do something when I got there, and it all worked. I accomplished both things. When I came as an 18-year-old that was broke, with the mom struggling on drugs. My stepdad was murdered my freshman year. So for me, it was like, NFL is money. Money is going to change my situation. And I promised my grandmother when I left college early as a junior, I was like, I'll come back and finish and get my degree. And I ended up coming back to finish my degree. So I accomplished, honestly, everything I wanted to do. I won games. I went to bowl games. I graduated. Made a relationship with some great brothers, set some records there, and became a man and accomplished, again, both of my childhood dreams was to get a degree, to go off to college and play in the National Football League.
There we go. And playing the Big Ten too, that's huge. Even to this day, playing Ohio State. Yeah, definitely a physical conference, right? Running right down. Of course, as a DB as well too. Like, was it Dion? Was that your inspiration when you're growing up too? Like when senior speed into running a 4.3 in the combine and doing all these things, you could have played receiver easily, but it wasn't more like, hey, you wanted to kind of be like Dion in a sense when you started playing DB, or was it more a coaching decision?
No, you know what? I was a safety at first. Like honestly, Dion was always my guy because he was he was from Florida.
Yeah.
But honestly, coming up, Steve Atwaters was my guy. He was tough. Okay. He was quiet, but just had a tough demeanor on the field. Ronnie Lott was my guy also. But high school I played safety, and college coaches was like, "We'll move you to corner." So when I got to Minnesota, I played safety. I redshirted as a freshman. The second game of the season, I think we were playing the second or third game of the season. I think we were playing Houston. They had a really big corner. He was from Miami, Orlando Iglesias. I still remember his name. That was my first starting game. And the coaches were like, "Willie, we need you to play corner."
Right.
And we worked on some technique stuff that practice. And I was like, okay, I'm up for the challenge. And that game was an ESPN game, a Thursday night game. I remember like yesterday, Tyrone Carter was my roommate on the road. He was the one that won the Thorpe that year. Played 12 years in the NFL, won 2 Super Bowls with Pittsburgh. So he would always write, notes down and put it on this pillow. So I was watching him. I'm like, TC, man, what'd you write? He was like, I just wrote what kind of game I want to have tomorrow. That's vision board, right? That's truly a vision board. So
100%.
He said, it's your first game starting. What kind of game you want to have? So I was like, I don't know, play smart, tackle well, He's like, no, man. Write what you want to have. Like, when you close your eyes, you lay your head on the pillow. What do you see yourself doing tomorrow? What do you hear the commentators saying? So I was like, honestly, dog, I see myself getting an interception because I know they're going to throw at me because I'm a freshman. Mm-hmm. And I'm playing it on covering one of their top guys. I know in the run game I'm going to show because I was physical and big. I'm like, I'm going to get a fumble cause, a fumble recovery, an interception. I'm going to tackle good on special team, and I'm going to have 5 breakups because they're going to throw the ball at me. When I ended the game, I had 4 PBUs, interception to win the game, cause fumble recovery, and like 6 tackles. Wow. And after that, I always wrote my notes down. And it was funny.
There we go.
A few months ago, I happened to be going through I have a trunk full of, my bowl rings, stuff from Denver, stuff from college, and I was showing my son. And it was the Radisson Inn or Ramada Inn, one of the two. I don't even remember. Mm-hmm. But Renaissance Inn is what it was. And on there, it was like 5 tackles there. So my son was like, yo, what's this? And I was like, man, before I knew what a vision board was, this was me writing out my vision. And like with my son now, or younger athletes that I work with, I get them to work on vision boards.
Every single time. So, yeah. And Thor, TC is the one that did that. I remember actually playing, when I was younger, playing with him in a video game, playing with you, especially when you're at Denver. Right. But I was just about to get there. But you were actually regarded as the best man coverage player in the Big Ten before the draft, right? That takes a lot of commitment, and that's where it started.
No, that's in the country.
That's in the country. I'll give you that. In the country, not in the Big Ten. There we go.
Some said in the country, some say in the Big Ten. I felt prior to breaking my leg, I honestly felt like I was honestly, and I was never a bragging guy. I was never a guy that throw stuff out. I let the critics say what they're gonna say. I just show up in the weight room, show up on the field in the meeting room, and let my play speak for itself. Like, I can't draft me. I can't give myself the accolades. So whatever accolades or stuff they say, they're the critics.
Right.
But no, I felt like before breaking my leg, that hindered me a lot in my career once I broke it. Like, I never was the same guy. It took a lot mentally to get over that hump, to get back to being who I was. Right there. And going from that point now, with Minnesota leaving in that year and going to the NFL and getting drafted 24th overall to Denver, mentality-wise, do you find there was a lot of pressure that you put on yourself before games? It's one of those things you just went out there and just balled. Like, how was it now going from Minnesota, young man from Homestead, Florida, getting drafted in? No, mentality-wise, it was pressure, right? Because I left school early. I got hurt. Like, I broke my fibula and messed up all the ligaments in my ankle. I want to say like week 7 against Indiana. And missed the entire, other half of the season, and then skipped my senior year based off. There was a lot of stuff going on where my head coach I thought was going to take the job at Ohio State.
Right.
I couldn't get in touch with him. My defensive back coach and also my defensive coordinator, he took a job with the Denver Broncos in the NFL. So for me, it was like a lot of the guys that pushed me in the weight room, they had went on to the NFL. Mm-hmm. That year and the year prior to that, I had covered some of the best receivers in the country. I remember my lineup being David Boston from Ohio State, Chaffee Fields and Eddie Drummond over at Penn State, David Terrell and Ty Streaks, Brandon Lloyd.
These guys are good.
Plaxico Barrett. It's like I'm just naming. I remember going down my list one year where I played 8 top 20 schools.
Yeah.
And the receivers looking at them like that year, the receivers I covered all were top 3 round draft picks. And I performed well against them, like Chris Chambers from Wisconsin. He played a long time in the league. Chris was, I think, a first or second rounder. Plaxico was a top 5. Dave Terrell was a top 5. I had did my thing. So it was like at that point, I was 6'3", 205. I ran a 4.25. 40-wise, I was faster than all of the DBs. I had the ability to play safety. And I started to understand, like, the game. Just because me and Tyrone Carter was like a big brother to me. So when I saw him get drafted, he was right up the street with the Vikings. He was like, yo, all you got to do is stay healthy. You're going to get your money.
Right,
he's like, you're
100%.
good.
Yeah.
And he would be sitting in meeting rooms and sitting around with some of the coaches and the scouts that did scouting work for the Vikings. Like, yo, what's Middlebrooks like? What kind of person is he? So when you start asking other teammates these questions, like, they got their eyes on you. And that was, I was like, okay, it's my turn. I'm gonna come out. I'm leaving early. I didn't say it to anybody, but I was like, I'm gonna leave early. Once I broke my leg really bad, I was like, okay. I cried like a baby, like, God, come on. I don't drink. I don't go out. I don't smoke.
Right.
Like, what's going on? Like,
right.
well, you know my situation. I'm saying, God, if anybody knows, you know my situation back home. So how you let this happen to me? And for a while, I probably went through a small depression for about 2 weeks. And then I was like, all right, bro, let's get up and get back to business. Like, it is what 100%. It is.
Yeah.
And then speaking to the doctors was like, yeah, Willie, you should be healthy by draft time. The only tough part would be your ligaments, because ligaments, they can't really put a time frame on how long they take to heal. Bone, they can kind of tell you. So when I got drafted, I'm like, okay, I got drafted. Working out in Louisiana, prepping for the draft was tougher than I expected, because my ankle I never broke something to that degree. And I didn't know time frame, how it was going to work, countless hours of rehab at University of Tulane. But when I got drafted, it was a little bit of a relief, but also added pressure, because it's like, okay, now you're here.
Yeah, now you got to go.
You got to go. It's go time. But I didn't get any, like most times you might have an injury, you come back, you prep it a little bit, you have practice, you see what it is. Mine was like, okay, you're playing college, you got hurt, and you jump into the big league. So it was like, your big league next is after your press conference and you sign your contract, you go into training camp, one-on-ones with the pros. So it was that. And my thing was, I held out my contract for 2 days, I think, because other guys before me didn't sign. So I didn't know, okay, what kind of money am I going to get? That's typical, the typical stuff that happened. Like, you sign accordingly. Like, you get $5 million or $1 million, I'm behind you. If you got 5, I want like 3.9, 4.9 or somewhere close. So I waited. And once I signed, coming to training camp, the news reporters wrote up this big story. He's a first rounder. He came in with a broke leg. Now he's here in camp. He wants more money. First day in training camp, the field is wet. We shouldn't have been doing one-on-one. I go out, slip, sprain my MCL. So it was that was tough, right? So but I mean, that's part of the game, though, right?
Definitely part of the game, and then definitely you overcame that, going forward, and the mentality. I remember listening to an interview you had. You said it's all about principle, but you put your trust in God. Like, you put your trust in God. You put your trust in beliefs and whatnot. So all that stuff, kind of help you. But before, but with that, like being in Denver, all right, and then of course playing the San Fran Broncos, and then your journey in the NFL, was there a lot of mental hurdles you had to overcome? Like, who was helping you kind of be the motivation to make sure you, like, every single day you just keep going?
I think my younger brother, because I wanted to lead an example for him. At the time, he went to my same high school. I have a bigger sister that was high competitive basketball. She went off to college to play. We talked a lot. Me and her went through a lot of the adversities as kids, where the stuff that my mom dealt with, we dealt with it together. So me and her to this day, we're still close now. We talked a lot. Some of my older teammates, but in Denver, the atmosphere in Denver was a very, very the team was very close, man. Like, Rod Smith was a really good guy to me. Mentored me, talked a lot to me. Adversities that went on, it was like you can say certain stuff to older guys. Al Wilson was another guy. I mean, all of the guys that were there were really good guys. That some of them came from rough upbringing, so they understood. And again, as you be what you see, it's certain guys where they didn't have someone to talk to that at that time that they was happy to share. And it's the same thing that I do now as a retired professional athlete, and I do performance training for young athletes. I give it to you good and bad. If you think you know a whole lot, you probably don't know that much. Let me give you some free game. And
100%.
if I see that you're a timid kid, guy or girl, and you could exert yourself a little bit more, I'm gonna tell you that also, like, yo, push a little bit more, because you got a lot. I see a lot more in you that you don't see in yourself. So go push.
There we go.
And I just think my whole journey with everything kind of put me in position to help young athletes now, and it's a pleasure. It's almost therapeutic, but it's a pleasure helping them. Man. Honestly, it is.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, you did make a comment. Once again, I want to go back to the quote, because I thought a lot about this quote. You said everything in life should be dealt with principle, right? You apply principle to everything in life. And, you know, transition from, well, you know, being in the States and coming to Toronto, of course, and settling in Toronto. What about this city kind of drew you to it? And then, of course, you know, the mentorship and whatnot. How did that come about? Is it always a goal of you to kind of help out these young kids?
I think coming here was easy. It's very diverse, and it's a lovely place to be. First off, the people here are super kind. I've been embraced well, like here, through football, and even when I got done, just the people I've met through just being in the city, whether it be in the gym, whether it be at a barbershop, whether it be anywhere. Ken, she's not here. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's Ken. Mom's not here right now.
It's okay. It's okay.
But the city is diverse. It's a very laid back, chill city, and it's room for growth. And I just felt like I've been to some really high places that people can only imagine, and like why would I not share it?
Absolutely.
And I see a lot of people here is they want better, but you only know what you know. And it's like me giving you a sandbox and say, okay, or sandcastle and say, build a house. Well, the only house you know how to build is what tools I give you. And that's you're going to build a beautiful sandcastle. Now, if I give you some tools and say, come in and shop with me, and we're going to start building birdhouses, and now we're going to expand. And I just think that's what it is. Like, I've seen a lot more, some of the other athletes here, but I just never been a fan of seeing more and not being able and not wanting to share it. Like, I think exposure equal expansion. And when you're exposed to a lot more, your imagination goes, beyond what you can think, and you get a different drive to be something else. It's just a different drive. I can't even explain it, but when you're able to see different things, man, you push different, and the motivation becomes easy. When you really versus, you think about things, right? When you're like, parents or people say, well, if you don't do this, you're going to get this. And they try to motivate you with things that you don't want to happen. I don't focus on life like that. I focus on, what do I want? How am I going to get it? And I try to get kids to focus on it. If you want this division board you set, these are the schools you told me you want to go to. Now you're making bad grades. Do you think Duke wants you with these bad grades? No, I'm not threatening you. I'm just giving you a reality check, letting you know, sis or bro, you're not going to get this with the way. I'm not going to argue with you and try to punish you. No, I want you to be motivated off happiness, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And getting back now, you remember you mentioned white Minnesota, but growing up in Florida, of course, now being here, like, what are the things you would say to your son or your kids, of course, when it comes to, being black in sports and just being black in general, about how to get live your life.
No, I'm glad you asked that. That's something where I had a vision camp before COVID hit, and in my vision camp we worked on. I gave them a word of the day, and one word of the day was perception, how people perceive you. And what I would do is I would have them write I would give 5 definitions of different ways, have them use it in a sentence, tell me, what do they think about this? What do they think about that? And some of the kids in the camp were white, but some of them was black. And I used both ways. I was like, how do you think people treat me? And they gave me their opinion. And I asked both kids. So I was like, I got treated different because I played ball. But I also knew I was going to get treated different going to Minnesota, because some of the guys before me had went off to far schools. Some went to Oregon, some went to here, some went to even JUCOs or whatever, but they were able to tell me, they're going to treat you this way because you play ball. And when I got to college, I had some great coaches that was there, man, that really did a great job with us where some of us didn't understand how to speak to the media.
Mm-hmm.
And coaches would come in and say, well, the media's gonna chew you up if you don't know how to talk. And that those little notes like that I took and was like, okay, so they're gonna see me as this because of my skin color. If I play well, they're gonna see me as this. If I get drafted, they'll see me as this. So you're gonna get some privileges because you're and you see it on the news and you hear the media say it now. Like a LeBron gets some passes because he's a high level athlete, and sometimes the media get on him because he's black.
100%.
Like the shut up, dribble the ball kind of thing. That to me was crazy. You like a guy who playing a sport shouldn't have anything to do with politics. Well, politics have always been around sports.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Always from the start. Yeah.
No. So when I talk to my son, I just let him know that people are gonna treat you a certain way because they'll see skin color first. Like you don't know my temperament when you see me walking up to you. You might get a feel from my body language, but the first thing you and I notice is, man, we're black.
100%. That's the first thing.
Now, once we sit down and have a conversation, you may say, yo, like, we think alike or we think different, but even though we think different, man, I respect Will because of these principles, or I don't respect him because of that. And so no, I let him. He's 11. My oldest son is 17, but I definitely let them know off top, like, people are gonna treat you a certain way. Women are gonna treat you a certain way. White people are gonna treat you a certain way. Your teammates. It's crazy to say, but people treat you based off how they feel and what they feel. And sometimes it's prejudice, sometimes it's because you're a gifted athlete, sometimes because you're just a really nice guy. And sometimes it could be opposite. You're just a really horrible person.
Right. It's all based on perception, right?
It's all built, right.
And there we go. I'm glad, of course, you shared, you have all these things about Toronto and you're here in Toronto, but I see you're a fifth fam instructor plus your health and wellness as well too. Do you focus a lot on the mind as well with your clients or with people you work with as well? Is that probably the most, because I remember you saying in another interview, like everything starts your brain, like everything. So when it comes to like your vision boards, is that one of the components you have? Do you have any other components?
I think the first thing you have to think about is it goes in the mind. And like, I don't remember if it was Michael Barrow that said it before, but he was like a guy that went to my high school. Like I've seen, he was family friends with coming up. He was really good friends with my aunt. He went to Miami. He had a long career in the NFL, but it was more or less, I think it might have been Michael Barrow, man, that kind of, yeah. That says, like, if you can think it, you can have it.
Right.
And I've always been that way. Like, if I think about something, like, it's not going to come to me if I've always thought about things that I want to happen. I never focus on, even when I'm having a rough day and I try to think positive, I just find something else to do. Whether it's music, when I'm in Florida, I would fish all the time. I'm having a bad day, I'm going fishing.
I was just about to talk about fishing.
I've never had a bad day fishing. I've never had a bad day fishing. Even when the weather was bad and I didn't and I didn't catch anything, I still had a good time. Okay. So I would just shift it, and I try to teach kids that now, man, shift your energy to where, like, you got to shift. And if you can, and once you have that vision board, whether you're someone that's dealing with health issues, you're overweight, underweight, you're an athlete, you want to get faster, it starts in the mind, man. Like, if you can think it can happen.
100%, man. That's all it is. And then you have to believe as well too. But I was just about to talk about fishermen. You beat me to the punch there. So I'm going to say, of course, in the Toronto, because whenever I leave, my dad and I, we go fishing. So that's something that when I saw that, I'm like, yo, that's sick. I would love to go. We can definitely go fishing in one day. But hey,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Coach Will, really appreciate having you on the program, on the show, sharing your journey, of course, and sharing, what you do for the youth as well too. And hopefully we have some more conversations.
No, definitely, man. It's a pleasure. Reach out anytime. I'm definitely down, man. It's just a pleasure to do. I wish we had more time, honestly.
I wish we had more. Definitely, I wish you had more time. I want to let you go, of course, be with your daughter, be with your family, but we will have another one. We'll sit down and talk more about the mind, more about what you do as well too. But this is the First 10 podcast.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.